My Neighbour Totoro. So soothing, so picturesque, a delightful premise and such a wholesome message in what was Hayao Miyazaki's 1988 breakthrough feature film. Released again in 2004 in English, the Everything's Gonna Be Okay story about two sisters moving to a new house and dealing with the uncertainty of their mother's ill health with the help of the Totoro spirits who live in the nearby forest and only make themselves seen to children, or those who believe, is a narrative that continues to capture the imagination of new generations. While admittedly the still background animation takes a smidge of readjusting to in today's fast-paced, short attention span filled world, its breezy, bright aesthetic of lush green forests, rice paddies and amber and watermelon sunsets makes every shot a painting. While the Van Gogh film Loving Vincent was the first film to be completely brought to life by oil paintings, the humble beauty and composition of My Neighbour Totoro seems to even challenge that film's place for most visually stunning feature. The film also draws you in with the sounds and textures of rain pitter-pattering on countryside roofs, bring relief on hot summer days, eating ice-cold fruits and vegetables in the shade on a scorching hot day, or eating a nourishing miso broth and thickly iced buttery vanilla cake on a porch with loved ones. Then there's also taking a nap on Totoro's plump furry belly. Take me there. While I do remember watching this film once growing up, I didn't grow up on it, so to speak. But watching it some years later with a hopefully matured perspective, I couldn't help but reflect on how healthy and wholesome the depiction of childhood is in this film, and how I wished I grew up on the messages this movie conveys. However, I also recognise that in ways this film conveys messages that seem all too familiar. There's a Narnia vibe when the younger sister, it's always the younger sibling, follows the mini Totoros into the tree root system. Then there's definitely an Alice in Wonderland feel when the younger sister actually falls down through the tree roots into Totoro's den. Thankfully, the younger sister May is believed when she talks of these fantastical things, unlike in Narnia where Lucy is disbelieved and shamed for thinking she saw something otherworldly. The idea that only children can see Totoro and the spiritual magical world they live in felt a little Narnian too, in which Aslan can only be seen by or presents himself to those who truly believe. A very Christian message, no doubt. Non-earthly beings and magical worlds presenting themselves to children in difficult times, be it during war in Narnia or when a parent is sick in My Neighbour Totoro, both seem to serve the purpose of teaching the children a lesson. The ancient sacred tree, which is Totoro's home, felt a little Avatar-ish, as did the film's message regarding how our relationship with nature has seriously degraded, with the quote delivered by the dad, "Back when people and trees used to be friends." Dealing with big topics like grief in fantastical ways made me think of Harry Potter, as did the Catmobile, which only the sisters can see, making everyone else seem a bit muggle-like, as Satsuki says, no one else can see it, can they? Which felt a little like this sequence. And this one. All of which is to say that watching this is like a big comforting nostalgic hug, even if you're watching it for the first time, because many texts that have come since seem to explore similar themes. But My Neighbour Totoro is still a complete original. The quiet comedy throughout makes this film bloomin' endearing, from May accidentally sticking her hands into Granny's butt crack, May joining her sister in school, the two sisters getting a shock from seeing the soot gremlins in their new house for the first time, or Totoro enjoying the ASMR of water droplets hitting his umbrella. Adorable. I think this film has a far healthier message regarding things that scare you than how haunted houses or bugs in your house are depicted in pretty much every other film. The straight up acknowledgement that their house is haunted rather than any slow discovering that it is, frames it as just a fact, rather than a necessarily terrifying one. When things do become a little scary, the dad says, "Try laughing, then whatever scare you will go away." A coping strategy still followed today. A recent example is the Syrian dad who taught his 3-year-old daughter to laugh when a bomb dropped to help her not be scared. Haunted houses in American films crop up all the time, and while they might eventually conclude that they are not something to be feared, like in To Kill a Mockingbird, the overall vibe that surrounds them was still slightly traumatizing growing up. The message as well that a big creature with a ridiculously big toothy smile and frankly frightening yawn is not to be feared, but rather is a play opportunity, I think is yet another far healthier message to grow up on. The depiction of childhood in My Neighbour Totoro is filled with wearing the same outfit every or most days, uncooperative hair, annoying immature boys who live next door, and jumping on parents to wake them up. AKA, it's realistic. Looking back, this is totally barbaric, but I distinctly remember being encouraged in primary school to not draw anything fantastical or made up, but rather real things that are as anatomically correct as possible. I know, what the heck? So watching this and seeing a rice ball shaped eared creature be the start of this film, which is merely a figment of Miyazaki's imagination brought to life, felt like a wonderful little F you to that advice. It's always a hoot when animated food appears in Studio Ghibli films. I've got 2 recipes for you today, Honeybunches, which don't strictly appear in this film, but I do think absolutely fit into the Studio Ghibli world. They're both easily made gluten-free and not to their detriment, so get excited for dumplings and steamed bun heaven in My Neighbour Totoro, but vegan. Hey Honeybunches, tofu and veggie pot stickers. These are so good. I teased these kind of like, I don't know, a month or 2 ago. My brother made ones, which I have improved upon. He agrees, I'm not just being cocky. But the wrapper is sensational. It's amazing. It's not gluey. It's actually slightly crunchy because of the use of rice flour in there, but it's a perfect mix of flours, and I know this recipe will be genuinely helpful for lots of you, so get excited. It's a tofu and veggie filling, as I said, and it has garlic, ginger, carrot, mushrooms, spring onions, cabbage, probably already said that, and firm tofu. I used a food processor to help make this experience not very scarring, because, you know, it's got a handmade dough recipe handmade dough component, and you know, that requires a little bit of work with your rolling, so I think you want to get this part over as quickly as possible. Add a glug of oil, let it soften, reduce in size, let it smell fantastic. You want to soak some mushrooms, some dried mushrooms. I think there's like porcini in there mainly, yes. Let them do their thing. Coconut aminos and tamari and coriander, add them to the veggies. And this is just like a flavoured broth that will help make the veggie tofu mixture, you know, deep in flavour, not just rabbit food. I added some corn flour to that to make like a slurry and just slightly thicken any, you know, leftover liquidiness that's come out of the mushrooms. Yeah, because you don't want your dumplings to be too liquidy. Although the wrapper stuff is pretty sturdy. Okay, so buckwheat flour, tapioca flour, xanthan gum, salt, and glutinous rice flour. That's the thing that's probably slightly different. It's what mochi is made out of. Yeah, whisk all the dry ingredients together, then add in a cup of warm water. Gradually, you probably need to switch to your hands, which is quite fun, or a fork. I think there's a fork in there. Yeah. This is so relaxing because the dough, for a gluten-free dough, is so well behaved. Like, it doesn't crumble or anything. It's just a dream to work with. Look at that. How fun. Oh, yes, so satisfying. Knead it for a bit until it comes together into a super smooth, silky, gorgeous, beautiful ball. And then I rolled it out sort of in sections to be, what was it, like 1/3 of a centimetre? Don't make it too thick. I think on the thinner side's good, just to make it go further, really. And then I use, what did I use? Like a little dish thing as a template to make them all the same size. Don't overfill them. Use a bit of water to seal them, and then sort of close from the outer tip wards in all the way around, so none of the filling like squirts out. You can see I sort of made a boo-boo there. But if you want to make them clean, then don't. Do you see what I mean? Like, close from the outer tip in, and that will just make sure, yeah, none of the juiciness squirts out. Look, my technique improved. And once you finish folding, eat the rest of the filling. It makes like, you know, like half a cup left over, which I think is the perfect little chef snack after you've done some hard assemblage. So yeah, clean your space. Let this in because it's quite satisfying. And admire your little beauties. Yeah, I went for a scallop technique that I think I mastered by the end. It's not too hard, you know, use your fingers as like a crimp thing. Add a glug of oil to a pot if you want to turn these into pot stickers. Of course you could steam these, but I think you've done all this work. Give them crunchy bottoms, y'all. Yeah, so once I've got a golden bottom, add a 1/4 cup of water. The pot will splatter. It's a bit aggressive and you might be like, oh, this is a bit above my cooking level, but you can do it, just have the pot ready and let them steam for like 8 minutes. Then transfer them to a plate and repeat to use up all the dumplings. Look at them, they're so good. Yeah, you just don't know these are gluten-free, and you can definitely feed them to people who are not, and they won't complain. Although honestly, if you're gluten-free, you probably haven't had dumplings in ages, so just eat them all yourself, I think. They're so good. It's so satisfying, slightly crunchy with the rice flour in them. Yeah, yum. And the filling's just like, yeah, tofu and veg. I just went sort of the classic route, but I think that's good. But you could obviously mix it up any way you like and dip it with tamari or soy sauce or coconut aminos and get excited. This recipe's so good. And now for the second recipe, honey bunches, tofu and veggie steamed buns with a really genuinely light, squishy bun that's vegan, that's gluten-free and vegan, but gluten-free. Okay, so self-raising flour, some cornstarch, some caster sugar, instant yeast, and a pinch of salt. Whisk that together. Then add a little bit of oil and heat up some unsweetened plant milk. And you could either do this in a mix master or just in a bowl and, with a wooden spoon and your hands. Gently, slowly add the plant milk and it will come together in a lovely looking yellowish, smooth as heck dough. Tip that out onto a floured surface, and because there was warm plant milk, it's so malleable. Oh, it's so cute. It's so squishy and round. It's lovely to work with. Just bring it together into a nice smooth ball. Look at that. Gorgeous. Oil the bowl you made it in. Pop it in there. Oil the top, or just, stroke it because it feels nice. Cover it with the tea towel and set it aside to rise for 45 minutes. Meanwhile, make your filling. And this is pretty closely like the first one. Not the first one, the one for the dumplings. But with a few different additions, some sesame oil and some sweet chili sauce. I sort of made a boo-boo. I maybe made the filling a little bit too fine, but taste-wise it was sensational. But I think because there's more of it going into these buns, because they're bigger vessels, obviously, yeah, you can afford to keep the mixture a bit chunkier. And because, the bun's so squishy, it's nice to have a bit of textured mouthfeel. Ew, okay, don't like that word. Anyway, after the 45 minutes, check on your dough. It should be risen a bit. However, it will have, what will it have? It will have cooled, so it won't be as of a dream to work with. You do become slightly aware that you're working with a gluten-free dough at this point, but just be patient with it. It's still fine and it won't break, but maybe just when you're assembling the buns, be slightly more gentle. Same thing, use water to sort of bring it together. Don't worry if it doesn't look perfect on the bottom, as long as it's relatively sealed, it will be fine, because you hide that side underneath anyway. Yeah, then cover them and let them rise for another half an hour, just so they can become extra light and fluffy as possible. Pop them in a steamer basket and steam them for about 8 minutes, and then ta-da! Look at them! You would not know they're gluten-free by appearances. I will not lie. By taste, you can slightly tell they're not as squishy as they would be if it was made out of normal wheat flour, if you go the gluten-free route. But yeah, bloomin' heck, this is like a warm hug, because you're like, I can have this if you're gluten-free, and you're like, oh, doughy things. Bit of a recipe for turmoil there, but yeah, they're delicious and so good and really easy and doable, I think. I ensure that all my recipes, honey bunches, are flippin' delicious and genuinely work, but there are some recipes which make me want to say, hold up, shut the back door, you need to make this. And that's how I feel about that dumpling recipe. Well, both, but dumplings are more my thing. Especially if you're gluten-free, I think you'll really appreciate that recipe, because I did some comprehensive research before coming up with that recipe, and I'm not saying it's the best gluten-free vegan dumpling recipe on the internet, but it's definitely up there. As always, follow, subscribe, share, all the things. Follow me on Instagram if you'd like to see more foodie content in between videos. Thank you so much for watching, honey bunches, and I'll see you in the next one. Bye.